Humans. Humans on the mix. That's good. That's cool. I'm getting it together at 6 o'clock.
Thanks again for doing this interview. I'm a huge fan of your work and of the genre, and I couldn't be more excited to talk to you, really. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to make this possible.
Oh, thank you.
Let's start at the beginning. So you started as a sort of protégé of King Tubby, is that correct?
Yes.
How did you meet him? What was he like? What's your sort of story about getting into that and getting into the world?
I was a young technician learning electronics. Tubby was a model in building amplifiers and sound equipment gear. That's what motivated me to meet him.
Did you immediately start? At what point did you start actually getting your hands on the console and moving faders and becoming a part of the music making process?
Not very long, within about probably 2 weeks to probably no more than a few months. It became a regular place for me to go up there and buy parts. Then next thing I know, Tubby's leaving me in the building to repair like amplifiers, do work on the lathe, cutting screw support. And by the time I know it, I'm in the studio mixing music.
What did you was that your first time working, or was that your first time on a console and like making music like that? Did you have any previous experience? No.
No.
What did he teach you, and what did you learn from him? What did you learn at the very beginning? How did he approach it?
At first, I was just going there, taking care of winding transformers,
right?
Repairing amplifiers. I was around 16, 17, stuff like that. So I was telling him, hey, Tubby, I know I could go inside there and mix, and he keep telling me, oh, that's not for you, you're too young. A lot of big men fail at it, and these producers is not going to just allow you to go in there to start the mix like that. It was a whole bunch of politics because I was the youngest engineer the world seen at the time. So he had a producer came there, was trying to get the other engineer to work, or Tubby's to work. Tubby's didn't want to work, and the other person wasn't available. So the producer was forced to use me if he wanted the record done that day.
How much older is Tubby than you are?
But I could be about 20-something, 30 years.
Okay. So how old were you when that all started?
16, 17.
16. Okay. Wow. You're young. Did you listen to? Were you at the time? Were you listening to his work? Were you listening to dub music? Was that like what you put on? Was that what you listened to?
Well, I got into the music because I was introduced to Roots of the King Tubby's album from an ex-friend that was a technician.
Right.
A friend of mine named Michael Clark that was a senior electronic engineer to me that just lived up the street. So he would recommend that you should use this album when to test your amplifier because I seen him do the same thing. A bunch of other senior technicians at the time, they would use that album, to pretty much test the amplifier. And then pretty much that album usually would show up some of the defects within the amplifier.
Do you?
So I became interested in what I was hearing in the music. I ventured out a little bit using my electronic theory to see if I probably could put something together. But I wanted was to get into a real studio to see if what I had in theory was even right. And a friend of mine that was doing a job around at Tubby's recommended that I should follow him here to Tubby's. And that was the introduction to Tubby's.
Nice.
And then I found it was a place for me. Wow, I can pick Tubby's brains about all these things.
So you guys, I mean, you two kind of approach. I mean, the sort of story is like, or the reputation is that you guys both approach it in a similar way, in the sense of it comes from a sort of electronic engineering base, or like how it's working frequencies and on a sonic landscape that's different than maybe some other guys in the dub world or other certainly other musicians. Would you say that that's accurate?
Well, being an electronic engineer, it gives you a big advantage over somebody who's just an engineer.
Right.
We know exactly what's going on inside the console, and we know exactly the limitations in the console, and we know exactly how to manipulate the console to do what to do. And then dub is the first electronic music that came before hip hop and all of them. And make no mistake about this. If it wasn't for reggae, you wouldn't have the bandwidth that you have in music. If it wasn't for reggae, they wouldn't be able to develop the type of speaker system and amplifiers that they have now. Because back in 1970, the type of systems we were carrying to the dance hall was way more powerful than what they would bring to any rock and roll concert. And with the other genres, it doesn't have the wide bandwidth like reggae. Reggae is what teach the world about bass in music. Reggae is what teach the world about hi-hat in the brightness and the crispness in hi-hats, which led the people who build in like tweeters to build better tweeters, because when you listen to the other genres, might as well the drummer don't even play the hi-hat.
Right.
And because of the lack of the hi-hat or the frequency of the hi-hat, the people who making like tweeters have really no way to know what the tweeter going to perform our work like. Like for example, when Tubby's came out with that flying cymbal with Santa Davis,
right?
A lot of tweeters was going to take them out. And then that is what prompts these manufacturers now to build better equipment. Because, reggae shows the fault data that the other genres can show because of how they're mixed.
Right. So what was the process? This radio show is most likely for non-dub listeners, and I'm so interested in how it worked. I mean, you had a producer that made a track, and then they brought that track to you to work on it. What was the workflow from beginning to end, and what was the purpose, both artistically but also kind of financially, for a label having more material to release, or a sound system to have a different version or something like that? How did it actually work from one person in the team to the next?
Well, going back before dub, you remember Version?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was happening back then, and you can look on a lot of American records that was putting out 45s. They had was to put 2 records on one vinyl and 145, correct?
Right. Right.
One side couldn't be bland. So rather than selling 2 songs for the price of one, the first ad version where they would just put the instrumentals.
Right.
Then later on, the creative process of dub came along. That was going along on the B side. Usually, what in fact happened back in those times with like my dub albums, the producer was never there.
Right.
They come, they drop off the tapes, and they're gone. They were never in the studio. None of my dub albums, Henry Laws or Lindbergh Thompson, that was never there. And those producers are really executive producers because they have nothing to do with the creative process of a dub.
Right. Okay.
Producers cannot produce dub.
Right.
It's not something that a producer can conduct.
Yeah.
Like you tell a musician, I want you to stop playing here, I want you to play X, Y, Z. It's all spontaneous.
Right.
So dub is a direct, what you call it, creation from the engineer. The dub is what created the first audio engineer as an artist,
right?
As a writer, as a composer,
right? Were you working like on your records, kind of in the early '80s, late '70s? Are you working with pre-recorded material where you're taking 16 tracks that have already been worked on and you're running them through what you do, or are they live or are you working with the music, the house band direct in the studio?
Yeah, well, the bands usually record the songs first, right, and then a lot of times the producer, like for example Henry Laws, John, when he was coming up, a lot of people used to give him tracks like Hollywood.
Right.
Hollywood with Barnabas Collin was first produced by an ex-producer named Leon. So that was basically the process. The musician would build the tracks. The producer would get his hand on it somehow. And in my situation, they basically drop off the tapes and go chase girls.
When you're working on tracks like that, are you like when you have as I listen to the tracks on the records, how much of that is of what you're doing, and when you're processing, how much of that is improvised, and how much of that is planned? I've read a lot about sort of Tubby's. Go ahead.
You read a lot about what?
Well, I just said I've read a little bit about Tubby's. Some of his inspiration coming from a love of jazz music and how dub is sort of improvisatory more than people think of it as. Is it? What's your take? I mean, you were there. How was it? What was it for you?
Well, it's improv. It's rearrangement. It's writing. Because if you hear some of the tracks, the way the musician play it, and if you also just let the track run straight, the way the musician play it, it will become repetitive and too predictive. And that is where dub come in to break up the prediction of what the musician play. You see, with dub, every time you listen to it, and there's ways that I develop that every time that you listen to it, you're going to always hear it a little bit different each time, and it's why it lasts so long.
Right.
If you just have the music the way the musician play it, it will become repetitive. It will become too predictable. The audience know what they're going to play next. Now, every time you hear a dub album, it's hard to predict, and is why musicians can go and imitate it. It's not something you can write down. Like that would take a hell to write it down. I got to a point where I could duplicate anything that I did first time. And a lot of dub mixers that is doing it. If it's okay, do the same exact thing second time, they can't do it because it's spontaneous. It's not something you can study or plan.
Right.
Yeah, you're not going to be. I practice it, and it was, but that's after years of doing it. It's very, very, very hard to do the exact same thing in 10 different parts. Every one of them is going to have something a little bit different about it. Now, you could write a Beethoven composition, and they could play it. Nobody ever play a song exactly 100% the same way, but they could play it in such a way that they can't take the difference. You can't do that with dub. So dub is the sole creation of the remixer engineer.
Right.
Has nothing to do with the production of the producers or anything like that.
What do you listen to now? Do you listen to a lot of music?
Everything. I listen to jazz. I listen. Music is music. I listen to everything.
Do you listen to dub music still?
Yeah, anytime I hear a bunch of that King Tubby's like roots of dub, is always good to listen to. But I listen to every kind of music. It's music. When I hear rock music, I hear the different genres. I know what I can do with it, and I hear what's missing. But I make no mistake. Make no mistake about it. The high fidelity that you hear in music and the big fat drums, it came from Jamaica. Reggae is what teaching the rest of them how to even put this stuff into music. It's the hardest music to engineer. When I hear what's on these big mega artists track, that in my head, that reminds me of when I was learning, because I hear the weakness within the sound. Good composition, but the tightness of the mixes, the separation of the instruments where you can definitely hear a hi-hat. And you can go back and you can listen. You might as well the drummer not playing hi-hats in most of these other genres because you can't hear it. Why? Because, that technique was developed in Jamaica. How to EQ, that was also developed in Jamaica. And I was ahead of it. I am the chief orchestra and the chief innovator. How to set up and how to record. And all of that is, the dub is like the final chapter. You have to know how to mic drums, how to record them, and all the different techniques. I develop them up. And how to get the drum to big and fat and crisp. That is all what I developed. So you have to get all of these things together first before you actually do dub, so that the dub can have the proper effect. With a weak drum, weak bass not tightened up properly, the dub not going to be so good.
Do you have a favorite record that you made, or a favorite dub record of your own, or a couple, just things that you're most proud of?
No.
Not at all.
No favorite. No favorite.
Can you remember? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. It's over 200 albums, that a bunch of them, they're staking them and trying to put Tubby's name on it. But it's over 200. I have personally over 200 albums to my name.
Mm-hmm.
And that not counting the different artists that I worked with their, because to every dub track there's also a singing track to it, where you have a vocalist to that track. And that's with everybody. We could take from Bob Marley to Ziggy Marley. I have a record with every one of them. At least one recording with every one of them.
Can you remember, like, I was thinking about this, because on the show, I think we're going to play Penny, I Love You, and then the dub mix that you did from the Wailing Souls record. Do you remember that? I mean, do you remember that, or is it all just kind of, you spent so much time in the studio that it's kind of a wash? Or do you remember certain sessions more than others?
The first kick of the drum, especially if it mixed around at Tubby's, I remember the song right away. I probably don't remember the song as I was speaking, but the first drum roll, I'm going to remember exactly the song and what happened at that day. I remember every song that I mix on. When I hear them, not to have them in my head, but when I hear them, because of the signature that's on the song. Like the first tick, any song that I mix up on Tubby's, the drummer just has to play a tick on a song. I could tell you where the song mixed, because we're going to have a certain signature on it that don't have anywhere else. I don't need to even hear the full roll.
Whatever
it's coming from.
What happened to Tubby's board? He made that, right? I mean, y'all modded it, or he heavily modded it?
No. That's one of the myths that been flying around here.
Okay,
it
good.
It was one of the first MCI consoles.
Okay.
It ended up in Seattle, Washington. That's where I last seen it.
Oh, okay.
In Jimi Hendrix Museum, that's where I last seen it.
In the Jimi Hendrix Museum?
Yeah, in Seattle, Washington. That's the last place I touched it. Actually went, look, and it touched it.
Why do they have it? Sort of off topic, but you know why they have it?
Well, yeah, when we all were doing all that stuff back in time, a lot of people took it for granted. Nobody knew that it was going to have the influence that they have now on all the different genres. So everybody took things for granted. What happened, again, a lot of people don't know the value of things, and then they lose it.
Right.
They don't want it anymore. What happened, I partially blame it on the Jamaican government for not securing, protecting, preserving the heroes of their country.
Right.
Partially blame it on them. The situation in which he died, it was a murder.
Right.
Homicide. I partially blame that on them too. He should have been in Jamaica.
He shouldn't have been in Jamaica, you say?
No, it should have been in Jamaica.
The board.
Yeah, there should have been a museum there for people like you.
Yeah, I'd go.
The first buyer of it should be the Jamaican government. This is why I partially blame them. And I put up responsibility on the Jamaica Tourist Board to do this.
Right.
Or the Jamaica Art and Cultural Center to preserve the history. Because I didn't know 30 years later when we're talking to somebody in America about dub.
Right. Where do you live now?
California.
How long has it been since you've lived in Jamaica?
That's since 85.
Do you work as an engineer?
Huh?
Do you have a studio out there, or what do you do? Like, what's Scientist Week look like?
What Scientist Week look like? Okay, Scientist Day starts at about 5 a.m. every morning. We are doing electronic designing gears, designing speaker systems, monitor systems, I've just finished a world-class monitor system that actually blows everything on the market. There's nothing on the market somewhere near close.
Is that for your own company, or is that for somebody else?
That's on my personal monitors that I design. I'm going to put on the market.
Okay. Cool.
Developing up DSP processors, stuff like that. So, like now, I get up. That's my main focus. And then, like this evening, I have a show. I have a live concert that I'm doing. And then I might come back home from a concert 2 o'clock in the morning. And before I go to bed, I have to deal with mainland China that we have my boards developed. Because, you know, to do them here in California, you know, before you even get started, it's thousands of dollars.
Right.
Is why we force. You know, I get 10 circuit boards back from China for $1,000. If I try to do the same thing here in America, it's $4,000, $5,000, $10,000.
Right.
Which is what killing business here. Because I would love to do them here, but if I'm just doing prototype, you know, and then you're forced to charge this much back to your customers, and then you lower the likeliness of getting a sale because it's high. You see, what China been doing with us here, they use a method named fast sale, small profit. What we do here, we want to make all this big profit one time, which is what killing all the other businesses. So that's my typical day. You know, 5 o'clock in the morning, I know I'm going to come back from the show tonight about 2, 3 o'clock. After to have an hour from the show to go home. And I know I'm not going straight to bed. I'm going to sit up for the next hour or so doing something electronic out of the bed.
Do you dub music? I mean, do you still do that?
Yeah. I have albums that I'm working on now. This album I'm working on with a young lady from France, Kelly and Paris. Going to be coming out with that. You still do.
And you do it. How does like the digital format work in your process now? Do you use that at all, or are you pretty much all hands on?
A lot of it did. I need to go into the Museum Hall of Fame. I wish if digital was around when I was recording and doing all of that, it would have been way better. The moment you hit tape, you're at a second generation. And by the time you go to vinyl, you're about 5 generations down.
Right.
Digital is the only thing that remains 1 generation from the beginning to the end. You know, with these digital consoles, you consume less from your power supply source. That means your light bill is going to be lower. Because 5 to 15 volts can run a whole console with very little current, probably under one amp. With a big 48 channel console, you have 48 volts, up to 48 volts, the 5 amp and all that crazy stuff, which in turn have more heat, and the more heat you have is the less the parts. We have what they call the accelerated life cycle of the part. So the more heat is the more you accelerate the life cycle of the part. So digital is a blessing. You don't need to get big tapes anymore that you can only put 4 songs on. You'd have to buy a big twinge tape for over $400. You can only put about 6 songs at third. Meanwhile, you can buy a hard drive that you can put over 100 songs. It's way better, way better. I love it.
Right. That's cool. So, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but as an innovator of the genre, how much do you think about dub's influence, or how much do you feel like you're aware of dub's influence on kind of everything that we listen to at this point? Are you proud of what you did and what you guys did?
Well, yes, we are extremely proud. I just wish that more people would recognize and don't believe, well, then reggae is a lower genre than the rest of genre. In fact, it takes way more engineering skill. You need way better equipment. You need a top-of-the-line equipment. As I said, without reggae, there is no way you'd have the type of speaker system that they have now. You'd have to take my word for it, you know. You can go back and you can compare the records, what was going on back then. You can play all the different genres, and especially now. You see, when I hear the records that I did back then, I heard the defect way back then because it was a second, by the time it reached the vinyl, a second generation, or a fifth generation rather.
Right.
I always knew that because why? Because listening to the sound before it hit tape, and then listening to the sound, what it sound like in the music in the studio after they mix it versus what's on the record. You know, with digital, it's so apparent, right, how lo-fi things was back then. But with even that, you can go back now and you can go listen, like I give you an example, Google Scientist Marvin Gaye.
Okay.
It's the same exact track. I did it in about 20 minutes, a rough mix. Please Google it. It's the same exact master tape. It's a rough mix. And when I listen to those tracks and what they've been doing with those artists back then, wow. Hey, great hits, a great composition, but really, is that the best they think Lady Gaga or Beyonce can sound? Come on, guys, they're dreaming. That's not all those E12 supposed to sound like. I can do way better with Beyonce for than that. I can make her sound so powerful. Because I hear the defect, but you see, people don't know what the differences are. Just like most people in America that go to some of these so-called Chinese restaurants, you don't see other Chinese family going there eating, and they sell us garbage Chinese food in America. Most people eat it because they don't know any better.
Yeah.
I hear the defects. I hear all what's going on, and you say, hey, and make no mistake, all these other genres came after reggae. Yeah, I hear, and guess what? If they can't do it in the studio, they for sure can't do it live. And I hear what they're doing. Hey, you don't have to take my word. Look at some of these big mega artists live show. You see people playing things, and you're not hearing it on the record. You're not hearing it. Because the technique how to do these things, it came from reggae. And a lot of people probably don't understand that. They think when they hear some of these other genres, they think it's a higher form of music than reggae. No. That's a true underestimation. And then make no mistake about this. Any musician who learns to play reggae, whenever he goes back or they go back to play any of the other genres that they came from, they're going to be better at it. If you learn how to engineer reggae, when you go back to engineer rock, you're going to be a better engineer engineering rock music. And when you want, and then this is why when you get these other engineers to engineer reggae, you hear how watered down the sounds become. Because people are accustomed to be listening those other genres that way. So it sounds normal to them. But I hear it, wow, this is the best. They think this is the best they can do with drums. Please, listen to Marvin Gaye. Just Google Scientist Marvin Gaye, and then you'll hear the apparent difference, night and day difference.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Brown, thank you so much for taking the time. I've learned a lot, and I hope that the people listening to this show will kind of dig into the music, because I would echo a lot of what you said, that I think dub and reggae have been far more influential than sometimes they're perceived to be. And just thank you for taking a minute to talk to me about it. I really appreciate it.
And please, I would appreciate it if there's no censorship with it within the editing, like they're not taking.
Oh, I won't. We won't edit it at all.
Yeah, I don't use it into it. Okay. Well, thank you. And if you could please send me a link when you hear it.
Okay. Great.
so I can re-listen to it. Thank you very much.
I will. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
A Spacebomb production.